Mic test, mic test. Bada bam, bam, bam. Hope we're rolling. This camera's on. This camera's on. This camera. All right. Welcome in. Episode 2 of the Vikings Athlete Spotlight. I'm your host. You already know, Viking. Why are you wearing shades, Viking? You're in a studio, Viking. I know. Future's bright. That's why I'm wearing the shades. Also, there's a lot of lights in this studio. We have 4 panels, working panels, and each panel has a backup. So at no point in this show should we experience any interference or delay. Let's get to the cricket. All right, so CPL regular season is over. Playoffs time. In the playoffs, Trinidad, Barbados, Guyana, and St. Lucia. St. Lucia has been on a heck of a run the last 4 years, making the playoffs all 4 times. Well, could this be their year? A lot to get into on this episode of the Vikings Athlete Spotlight. We've got a packed show. We have some mailbag questions that we're going to get into. We appreciate your feedback on the first episode. Thank you guys for the support, and we hope you continue to support this show and the community that we're trying to build out here. First things first is get into the first qualification, or eliminator rather. That's what they're calling this. Trinidad and Barbados. What a fixture. On paper at least. All right, so eliminator 1. Night Riders won the toss. Opted to bat first. No surprise. A lot of teams when they toss at Providence have opted to bat. A couple of factors, due factors that seem to play a major role in the teams deciding to bat first, as well as just the winning probability. Teams batting first at Providence have won a majority of the games in the last couple of years. We've seen the Warriors dominate at home by batting first, rather. So, no surprise. And even in the second game, we saw the St. Lucia Kings up to bat first as well. So this is picking up. This is a common trend. We'll see if it continues throughout the tournament. And, of course, as we get deeper into the tournament, bigger games, scoreboard pressure gets more and more. Having runs on the board is crucial in any game, but especially when you have that expectations and the pressure of a knockout match, it becomes that more pivotal in a game. Man of the tournament thus far? Question mark. Nicholas Purin. Wow, he continues to shine. Unfortunately, this is the end of his tournament, but what a performance he's had over the last couple of matches. In fact, over this tournament. I would be doing him a disservice if I said just over the last couple of matches. He started off the tournament with a bang, 97 against I think it's the Nevis Patriots. And then he followed it up with a couple 90s in between, and then now finished on 91. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get over that line due to some unforeseen circumstances. That's what we're terming it as. A couple years back, and of course, T20 has transformed over the last 2 years or so in terms of the mindset, the approach that these players are taking in not only the power play, but the middle overs. It used to be the dead overs that you really explode and get a significant boost to your total, but now teams are looking at it in a whole different perspective. 20 overs, you're going hard out, especially this is something that we've seen from the Sunrisers Hyderabad and IPL. The Calcutta Knight Riders have adapted this approach as well. And we've seen teams now, the Knight Riders and the CPL, have adapted that same approach where they're sending up the pitch hitter Narayan, top of the order, well, when he was healthy at least, to get them off to a good start. We've seen the Warriors, they've tried to do it, but we'll get to that in a little bit because I think that's been the downside for their tournament so far. I just want to give Nicholas Purin his flowers before we jump to the next topic here. So Nicholas Purin over this CPL, wow, listen to these numbers. 504 runs. Of course, we know the high score of 101. The average of 56, strike rate of 169. I lost that trail of thought that I was going to get to earlier. I was going to say, a couple of years ago, if you averaged 35 at a strike rate of 150, you were considered a good to great T20 batsman. You were considered in the top 10%. Now, listen to the top players this year for the tournament. Nicholas Purin, I just read you his numbers. Johnson Charles, he's averaging 44 at a strike rate of 156. Quentin O'Cock is averaging 48 at a strike rate of 165. Shimron Hetmeyer what is Shimron Hetmeyer on? He's averaging 43 at a strike rate of 188. Faf du Plessis, 38, 148. Hanging around there, top 5, just to round it out. But you've seen how the game has changed drastically. The intent from the batsman is different. Their approach, the fearless approach that makes the game so entertaining. And we love it. I love it. The bowlers are not going to love it. But having said that, what a season it is by Nicholas Purin. And what this means going forward is probably the best player of spin. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to attach a qualifier to this. because he's not just the best player of spin. He's probably the best player in the Caribbean. The best player in the Caribbean is not out of the tournament, which we'll see. Of course, matchup dependent. He was the reason that they were able to win that game against the Warriors. When you look at the Warriors and their strong suits, it's the three spinners that really are able to dictate the middle overs, take wickets, and then almost collapse the innings coming down to the end. When you have someone like Nicholas Pooran at the crease, he takes all three of your spinners out, and they have three different spinners. They're in a unique situation in which they have Moeen Ali, a right-arm off spinner who's been phenomenal in the tournament. He's averaging something like 11 and under 6 economy, rather. Then you have Imran Tahir, vastly experienced. Imran Tahir, I don't need to get into the numbers to Imran Tahir. And you have Gudakesh Moti, left-arm spinner, which isn't the ideal matchup for Nicholas Pooran, but automatically he goes out of the equation. So just by the sheer factor of having Nicholas Pooran around, takes those three spinners completely out. Of course, you're still going to bowl them, but it's not a favorable matchup, as you might see with other players in the Caribbean. I'm going off here because this just came to my mind and I want to discuss it. We all know that is the weak point of our batsmen here in the region. Is the player against spin. Hitting sixes is one thing. Being able to rotate the strike and showcase a level of batsmanship, not everyone is able to do that. Maybe Shea Hope comes to mind, Nicholas Pooran comes to mind, Roston Chase is somewhere in thereabouts in his ability to manipulate the ball. And now Johnson Charles, we'll get into him a little later. So not a lot of guys that are able to take it to your opposition in terms of taking down your pace bowlers and your spin bowlers. Pooran, big loss to the tournament, but I think he's rounding into form here. I think we should expect big things from Nicholas Pooran from this point on. He seems to be. There's a point when you get in your career where your mental side of the game is almost on par with your physical tools, and that's when you're at your peak. That's when you're in your prime. That's what we can define as prime in the sporting world, and I think he's almost there, and good luck to everyone else. All right, so 19.1 overs, lights go out, and the momentum is halted. Teams go back into the dugout, and we weren't able to get back on the field for another 2 hours. I'm not going to get too much into the situation itself, but I am going to say that this has been a recurring thing at Providence. Shout out to FL Sports, by the way. They do bring coverage out of Guyana with all the local games. So this is how I was able to see the previous games. Not CPL, but there was a tape ball competition. The finals was held at Providence. I was able to watch it on that platform. And the lights went out in that competition. I think in a World Cup match, the lights went out there as well. So it has been a recurring theme. And if that's the case, then in this situation, you need to be proactive. And then to have your sporting leader come out and act in such a childish manner before the preview of the Guyana game, there's no excuse for that. I think I'll just leave it as in a case where you should have been proactive, you're now being reactionary. So we'll leave it as that. We had a revised target of 60 runs in 5 overs. I'm glad that we were able to have some outcome of this match being decided on the field. We never wanted this game to end with just a net run rate result, which would have resulted in Trinidad and Tobago going through. As fans of the game, we want to see the game decided on the field, and we got that opportunity with 5 overs. Duckworth Lewis is something that maybe we do a different show on, because I can ramble on and on about what I think about Duckworth Lewis and how it often favors the team that's batting second. Yes, Barbados Royals were in a more favorable situation after the delay. Having said that, the Trinbago Knight Riders didn't help themselves. Let's start with the questionable decision of not bowling the bowler that has bowled in the power play for you throughout the entire tournament. Was he on the field? No Akil Hussain sighting in that match. Nothing. I understand that is an restricted amount of overs. However, it's still the power play. You should be bowling the guy that is most adept to bowling in the power play. If you have someone with that level of experience, that level of practice, that level of game time, you have to open up with Akil Hussain. Even if you wanted to open up with Sunil Narayan, I understand Sunil Narayan is a matchup nightmare by himself. But you needed to give Akil Hussain an over in that power play. Having said that, he turned to Chris Jordan, and Chris Jordan could have proved all of us wrong. He could have picked up the wicket of Rovman Powell on the third delivery of the over, but it was a no ball. And I never understood the reason for pacers to be pushing the line that much. You have all this room behind that front line to work with. It makes no sense to be pushing it centimeter by centimeter. You're not going to gain that much pace off of it anyways. And as someone that's catered to taking pace off the ball, why are you pushing the line that much, Chris Jordan? He's done it over his career. comes back to bite him here in the big moment of this knockout match. This is what we do. We dive into matchups. So we're going to dive into the matchup of Miller versus Jordan. So Miller against Jordan. He's faced Jordan 55 balls. He scored 98 runs in those 55 balls at a staggering strike rate of 178.18. So, at least to say, a favorable matchup for David Miller. I feel for Bravo. I do. For many of us, especially my generation growing up, he was the icon of T20 cricket. There's stars in the game, and then there's superstars. I think superstars, they bring something more than just what's on the field. When you talk about showmanship, there was none like DJ Bravo. He made the game more entertaining. Now, cricket lovers like myself, we enjoy watching the game for the on-field battle, of course. But he brought something else to the mix that we deeply appreciate now, and I think all of us enjoy watching the game played this way, with that level of charisma, that level of bravado, the level of entertainment that he brought to the CPL, which ignited this whole biggest party in sport. So it's sad to see him go out that way. 0 titles in 3 years for this Trinbago Knight Riders team. I think if we ask anyone going into this 3-year span when they put this team together, Russell, Narayan, Pollard, Dwayne Bravo, Nicholas Pura, and those big names, blockbuster names going into this 3-year span, and we said they got 0 titles, I think everyone would say that they've definitely underachieved in that span. But we also want to talk about how maybe some things go overlooked a lot of these games. But I remember watching the Royals take on the Royals in the game before they played Trinidad, like the Knight Riders. When they were down and out of that game, and David Miller walks in, and he's just got all the time. He's got no pressure on him, no expectations. The game is out of hand. The game is out of reach. And he walks out, and he slams 71 runs not out in that innings at Providence. I don't think we can underplay how important an innings that was for his confidence. Just the familiarity that he got from standing out there in the middle. The confidence that you gain from an innings like that can take you throughout the entire tournament. Now, second match of the playoffs and the qualifier 1. I've been a big Johnson Charles hater. I can say that for maybe the last 6 months or so, especially in the World Cup team when I thought he was keeping the lights of Shea Hope out of the side. But he's rewarded Sammy for his faith. All year, they've stuck with him, and he's come good all tournament. And now at the biggest moment of the CPL, he's shining bright, and he's winning games for them. The knock against Johnson Charles for many years has been his inability to score runs off of left-arm spinners. And we've seen a number of guys that have come through the ranks, and they've got to a certain point in their career where they plateaued. When I think about that, I think of guys like Jason Holder. We haven't seen them add much to their game. It's so important that you continue to add to your game. Regardless of the level that you're playing at, regardless of what you've achieved, the game is always advancing. People are always studying you, studying your tendencies, everything. So it's on you in order to stay at the top, in order to get to the top. Hard work, yes. Dedication, yes. But evolution is key in anything you do, not just in the sporting world. And to see guys like Faf du Plessis reinvent themselves, maybe Faf is a bad example because I think Faf has just sustained longevity throughout the years. But a better example probably would be Shea Hope. To see guys like Shea Hope reinvent themselves and come this late into their career and have the ability to change T20 games now. And Johnson Charles has followed suit. He's taken the biggest weakness in his game and he's transformed that into now a strength. Johnson Charles against left arm spin this year. 87 balls, 142 runs at a strike rate of 163. Prior to that, he had been dismissed the most against left arm spin, 20 times. No other batsman has faced more dots than him against left arm spin. And to go from that to now being dominant against left arm spin, he took Gudakesh Moti and Imran Tahir out the game completely from the get-go. And when you have a pair like him and Faf du Plessis, who's always played well at Providence, he's always played Imran Tahir well. When you have guys that match up that well against your trump cards, it's always going to be dangerous. It's always going to be hard for you to get back in the game. And when they got off to that power play start, 70-odd runs in a power play, you were always pulling the game back. However, we'll never know how it would have turned out given that the rain gods decided that you get another chance, Guyana. On the other side of the coin, someone that hasn't necessarily been rewarding the faith of Imran Tahir, Chemo Paul continues to struggle. I don't want to make it seem like I'm harping on Chemo Paul, but he's been playing in a diminished role. First and foremost, he hasn't been bowling. He hasn't been scoring. They gave him an opportunity in this match to open the batting, to make an impact. Tournament thus far, he scored 110 runs in 11 matches. So he's averaging just about 10 runs. So it's been an indifferent season from Chemo Paul. We haven't seen him go through a patch like this in his career. And a majority of players do go through this lean sort of patch, and it tests your character. So I want to see him come out on the other side of this. I want to see him reward Tahir's faith like Charles did for Sammy. But the Warriors continue to chop and change at the top of the order. They're continuing to stray further and further away from that championship mold that they had last year, which was consistency at the top of the order. Now, I understand you're not finding a suitable partner for Gurbaz. Maybe he's batting at number 3. Or just pick someone and back that individual to stay at the top. Now, heading into the playoffs, you can only play 4 overseas players. You probably should have been preparing one of your younger guys before getting into this late stage in the competition. I like Kevlon Anderson. I like Matthew Nandu. Maybe they're a little bit too young, but we've seen what Kevlon Anderson has done last year for them in big games. He came up strong in the semifinals. You gave him 1 game and then you dropped him. So you're not helping the confidence of your young players. And now we'll see what you do for tonight's match. But if you're going to change again, then you got to hope that this time it clicks, because at this point, you're closing your eyes and throwing darts at the dartboard and hoping that one hits. And it's not the way that they've done things. It's not the way the winning teams do things. But they just happen to squeak by on the back of some excellent form from Shimron Hetmaya, who's starting to carry this batting lineup. Gurbaz has gotten off to starts, but hope we're going to see if he puts it together tonight. Continuing on the indifference of the Warriors this season, we haven't seen Shepard bowl that much either. I don't think he's still dealing with that injury. I think at this point he's been playing long enough. I think he's been cleared to bowl, but for some reason he is still not being given the opportunity. He was a bit expensive, but you're going to need these guys. You're going to need as much options heading into the semifinals. And we'll wait and see what Imran Tahir has up his sleeves. I guess the best quality about Imran Tahir is his belief in players. So he's chosen this bunch of guys, and he's backed them throughout the tournament. We'll see if they reward him coming into this phase. Mailbags. All right. Before we get out of here, I've got a great question that I want to dive into really quick. What do you think about the collaboration between the Toronto Raptors and Guyana, and how will it change the outlook of basketball? Great question, first of all. So those of you who didn't know, early in the year, the president of Guyana, Dr. Irfan Ali, met up with Masai Ujiri, who's the vice chairman and president of the Toronto Raptors. I think they met up at the OVO Center, Athletic Center there in Toronto. So Masai Ujiri has been the vice president of the Toronto Raptors for some years now. He was instrumental in the Raptors winning the 2019 title. If you remember, a seasoned statesman that was with the Toronto Raptors, DeMar DeRozan, who had played a number of years with the Raptors, and they just weren't able to get over that hurdle. The Cavs were always a team standing in their way. They had the best player in the world at that time, LeBron James. To no fault of theirs, they just weren't able to get past that Cavaliers team. I remember several years of them being knocked out in the conference finals or the semi-conference finals. So, and Masai, what seemed as almost like a controversial decision, when Kawhi Leonard became available, he pulled the trigger on that trade and sent what was their best player and what was a fan favorite, a city favorite. He wasn't a homeboy. Of course, he's a Compton-grown DeMar DeRozan, but he had almost became Canadian for how long he had been there. And the attachment that he had to that franchise, he spoke about in an interview when he got traded. They traded him for Kawhi Leonard, who was coming off the Spurs, was coming off injury concerns. Had no doubt to everyone, Kawhi Leonard was the better player, but it was a strict business decision, and I think that speaks to the kind of person that Masai Ujiri is, because that decision led them to a title in 2019, the only title in Raptors history. So that's the kind of man that we're dealing with here. At the forefront of his mind, he's always thinking progress. He's always thinking whatever it takes to win. And so From the meeting, what we gathered is that they discussed ways in which the Raptors can contribute to the growth of basketball in Guyana. If you don't know, the Raptors are one of the main franchises that have drafted players outside of the U.S., outside of Canada. They've got the likes of Pascal Siakam, who's no longer on the team, but they drafted him, who turned out to be an all-star in the NBA. So many other guys that they've, Christian Koloko, who's also an African player. He's now on the Lakers. He was drafted there, second round overall. They've been known for finding talent all across the globe. It's something that they pride themselves on, living on the outskirts and doing things in an unorthodox manner. And they've been able to find really good talent. So that bodes well for Guyana. That bodes well for the Caribbean as well. If they're going to put the spotlight, no pun intended, on Guyana and on the Caribbean and focus on key areas such as development of the sporting facilities, the organization and coaching drills, and having talent identification programs, and just promotion of grassroots basketball innovatives and initiatives in the country. I think, if I remember correctly, he is supposed to be leading a delegation to Guyana later this year. I think it's probably going to be next month to advance those initiatives, which is going to be a significant step for strengthening basketball in Guyana and Canada, the bridge between those two countries. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Guyana does have two players that have played in the NBA before. Raleigh Marshall, who suited up 63 games for the Dallas and Indiana in 2005, 2007, and Jason Miskiri. I could be butchering that name. I think he played for the Charlotte Hornets in 1999 to 2001. But the leaders discussed not just means and by which they can develop talent in Guyana, but they wanted to focus this on more so of a Caribbean project. This is going to be great for the young talent in Guyana. I know that basketball is a growing sport. It is a widely popular sport in Guyana. And recently, the second edition of the One Guyana Basketball Premier League is going to take place. And it's a great way for young talent to get identified. It's a great way for them to showcase what they're capable of. Level sports, I hope they're going to cover it. We're going to do our best here at the Athlete Spotlight to cover it as well and get those talents out there. We know there's a lot of folks out there that are capable of making a name for themselves, and we hope that that tournament provides the opportunity. And now this collaboration between the Raptors and Guyana, we hope that that bridges the gap for players in the Caribbean going into the NBA. So that is that. Thank you again for your questions. We have some more questions we're going to dive into on the next episodes. Please feel free to continue to ask questions. That was a great one that we had today. Appreciate the support and the love. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Viking out.